Textile craftsroom. The origins of the textile craftsroom date back to the exhibition Hands That Never Rested, aiming to address the textile theme, art, and female manual trades before the 20th century. The construction and consolidation of the textile craftsroom are attributed to the efforts of Edith Jimenez de Muñoz, the museum's founder, and the donation made by Arama to the museum in 1994 as part of the exhibition. The textile craftsroom exhibits various techniques, mostly needlework, used to create lace, embroidery, and other pieces used for decorative garments and household items. These crafts are also used in making clothing, fabrics, decorative objects, representing diverse ornamentation techniques, referring to the finished piece itself. Most textile crafts rely on needles as tools, but some techniques involve intertwining and knotting threads. Knitting crafts. Knitting crafts gather techniques that use loops to create a fabric formed by a single thread linked to itself. In this category, we find crochet, knitting with 2 needles, and sock knitting. Crochet is a knitting technique that employs a hook-tipped needle called a crochet hook. Crochet is easier to learn, versatile, and quick. It is the simplest technique for circular knitting. Believed to have originated in China, crochet reached Spain through Arab trade routes. There are also indications of a similar technique in pre-Hispanic communities in South America. Crochet gained significance during critical moments in history, such as the Great Famine, providing sustenance for Irish women, and during World War II, when it was used to knit entire outfits for soldiers and the general population. Knitting with 2 needles is a technique where fabrics are created by manipulating loops of yarn that interlace, forming stitches. 2 long needles, 1 in each hand, hold the yarn for knitting. This technique, originating in Egypt between the 11th and 14th centuries AD, spread across Europe during the 13th century. In the 18th century, it gained recognition through the famous trick-tattoos, who knitted near the guillotine during executions. This practice was mechanized in 1859 with the invention of the industrial knitting machine by William Lee. Sock knitting is a variation of 2-needle knitting. This technique also involves interlacing loops of yarn to create stitches, but with thinner threads, and knitted with 5 shorter and thinner needles to facilitate circular knitting. The result is a thin, flexible, and warm fabric using materials like wool or cotton, perfect for making socks and gloves. Sock knitting may have similar origins to the 2-needle technique. Needlework. Needlework comprises a series of crafts using needles and thin threads to create detailed and delicate works. In the room, we find needlework such as embroidery, needle lace, and Maracaibo suns. Embroidery is one of the most commonly used techniques for embellishing garments. There are 4 types of embroidery in the room: raised embroidery, cross stitch, shadow stitch, and cutwork. Raised embroidery originated in England, creating designs with relief on the fabric through stitches. Cross stitch is recognizable in archaeological sites from 500 BC in Egypt. It involves stitches that form an X shape and is popular due to its versatility and ease of creating drawings. Shadow stitch is ancient, with pieces in India dating back to the 3rd century BC. This technique uses shadow stitches worked on the back of the fabric, creating greater opacity in parts of the drawing when viewed from the front. Cutwork has evidence in pre-Hispanic American pieces and 17th century Spain. Traditional cutwork involves removing threads from the warp or weft, while in cut stitch, threads are removed from both the warp and the weft. This is the traditional technique of the famous embroideries of Cartago, Valle de Cauca. Needle lace is a lace-making technique using a needle and thread on a canvas placed on a paper with a drawn pattern. The fabric and paper are pinned together, and the lace stitches are created from the edge of the drawing. This technique was used mainly in Asia and Europe during the Middle Ages, with indications of a similar technique in pre-Hispanic America. Maracaibo suns is a technique performed on a pad called pique, with pins on the circle's radii, resulting in circular lace. Maracaibo suns originated in the Canary Islands, also known as Tenerife suns or Nuanduti, depending on the location. Other crafts. Additionally, there are crafts that do not use needles but are created through the intertwining and knotting of threads. This category includes macrame, bobbin lace, frivolity, and netting. Macrame is a craft that creates textiles through knots and braids. It uses a frame, which can be padded like a cushion, or a wooden board. Macrame is believed to have originated in Mesopotamia. In pre-Hispanic America, knotting similar to the Inca culture's Quiputec counting system is found. Bobbin lace is a technique requiring a pad to secure the work with pins, and lace is formed through the interlacing and twisting of threads. The first traces of bobbin lace are found in ancient Eastern societies. Frivolity, or tatting, is a passementerie technique composed of knots and shuttles used to create designs. It relies on a shuttle to form stitches. Frivolity originated in the East, where it is called makuk. Netting is an easy craft that can be done with simple meshes or decorated with embroidery. To create it, a shuttle, usually made of steel, and a gauge, a rod for gathering the loops, are used. Traces of the netting technique are found in primitive societies' fishing and hunting nets. The Textile Crafts Room provides a glimpse into the rich heritage of textile crafts, showcasing the diverse techniques passed down through generations and representing the creativity and skill of artisans throughout history.